Hello all, Winston here, welcoming you to another episode of Watchtower Examination. When I first learned about some of the ridiculous things that were taught by Jehovah's Witnesses, in particular during the time of Russell, I was amazed. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that people could actually believe those things. And I wondered for a while. I tried to put myself in people's positions. I tried to see how I could believe them myself. And I suppose if I started out as a child in the Watchtower organization and I am taught all these things, then I could believe that it is true. And secondly, if I don't know, if I never knew a thing about the Bible, and Jehovah's Witnesses came to me and convinced me that all other churches teach false doctrines and that they alone are the truth. And they do something that I think is a bit clever. They would point out some false teachings in Christendom that are clearly false. And when you do that, you open people's eyes to the reality that there are false teachers out there. And it not only does that, it makes you look like the real deal. But it still is difficult for me to understand how Jehovah's Witnesses could actually believe some of the things they believe. Then I met, when I say met, quote unquote, met Raymond France when I read his book, Crisis of Conscience. I saw a man who said he believed those things. But when I read Crisis of Conscience, it also tells me something that no man who is able to critically analyze what they teach can continue to believe it. And that is what happened with France. He had reason to re-examine what the organization teaches, and he saw that they did not add up. One of the things that Jehovah's Witnesses do when you point to the errors of the organization in the past, they would pivot to, oh, but these men are so humble. They admitted that they made mistakes. And sometimes I get a little annoyed. I mentioned it before. I asked a Jehovah's Witness couple to think through something with a simple question. I was looking on the subject of the appointment of the faithful and discreet slave that no Jehovah's Witness has been able to make sense of until this day. Not one Jehovah's Witness who can answer questions regarding the faithful and discreet slave. They all run away from it. And so my most recent encounter with Jehovah's Witnesses and that subject was a couple that came to my door one Sunday, and I asked the question, does it make sense to you that Jesus appointed a slave, but the slave did not know? Simple question. Does it make sense to you? Is it plausible to you that Jesus appointed a slave, but the slave did not know? The question, the response was, have your church ever made any mistakes? And I try to help them understand that let us not change the subject. That is not the point. Everybody makes mistakes. So let us say, for argument's sake, that they made a mistake. Just answer the question, does it make sense to you? And they would not answer the question. I mention that because Jehovah's Witnesses keep talking about these humble men who make mistakes. And rather than be disappointed in the mistakes that they make, Jehovah's Witnesses are proud of their humility and their willingness to admit that they made mistakes. We all make mistakes, don't we all? But when you claim that you are God's only channel, when you claim that Jehovah is giving you instructions, when you claim that you are the faithful and discreet slave that Jesus prophesied about at Matthew 24:45-47, you can't quite get away so easily with "we made a mistake." It is one thing if you make mistakes. It's another if you keep making mistakes. And it is yet another thing when you are lying and you know 100%, you are fully conscious that you are lying. There is another movie that I'm planning to do. But in order to do that movie, I needed to find a clip. The clip with Russell announcing in 1914 that the Gentile times have ended. And so I went to jw.org and I started searching, looking through some videos. And I found one particular video that I felt confident would have given me that 1914 scene. A video I have actually seen before, but I have not done any video on it. And I will be doing a full response to this documentary produced by the Watchtower. The very first thing said by Samuel Hurd was a blatant lie.
For more than 100 years, Jehovah's Witnesses have proclaimed the Bible's message that God's kingdom will rid the world of wickedness, restore the earth to paradise, and raise mankind to perfection. Sharing this truth, however, has often resulted in persecution from powerful institutions. But why has such a positive message elicited such a negative reaction? And how have we overcome that opposition to get to where we are today? This is the story of a people intent on living in the light of Bible truth.
The Baptist Church teaches that Christ is going to come again, that his kingdom is going to conquer all kingdoms, that paradise is going to be restored, that mankind is going to be restored to perfection with God. I have never heard of any Baptist being persecuted for preaching that gospel. The Seventh-day Adventist Church teaches that Jesus will return, that the wicked will be destroyed, that the saints will be taken to heaven, and that mankind will be restored to perfection. I've never heard of the Seventh-day Adventist Church being persecuted for that. The Pentecostal Church, the Methodist Church, most Christian churches teach the soon return of Christ and how God's kingdom will ultimately take over and that man will be redeemed to God and will be restored to perfection. I have never heard of Christians being persecuted for preaching that gospel. And there is no such thing as any Jehovah's Witness who has ever been persecuted for teaching that. Samuel Hurd is lying. Samuel Hurd is trying to sanitize their history. And Samuel Hurd knows that he's lying.
So we need to speak openly and honestly with each other, not withholding bits of information that could change the perception in the listener or mislead him.
When someone who knows that withholding certain information to change the perception in the hearer does that, you can't tell me that they don't know what they're doing. There has never been, well, they probably would say it, because if Samuel Hurd will lie about it, they would probably put it in print as well. But in my research of this organization so far, I don't recall ever seeing any specific statement of any Jehovah's Witness who was persecuted because they told someone or because they preached that Christ is going to return. Lying. And he knows that he's lying. Jehovah's Witnesses being persecuted in Russia. It is not for teaching that Jesus is going to return and that mankind is going to be restored to perfection. When Jehovah's Witnesses were persecuted in Malawi in the 1970s, it wasn't because they were teaching that God's kingdom is going. None of that. It's a lie. Jehovah's Witnesses get persecuted for other reasons than preaching that thus saith the Lord. When Rutherford was arrested, it was not for teaching people what Hurd is saying. And Hurd knows it. He is lying through his teeth to Jehovah's Witnesses. And this documentary is laced with lies.
This is the story of a people intent on living in the light of Bible truth, no matter what hostility they may face. As you watch, note the determination of Jehovah's modern-day servants to study diligently, preach zealously, and keep serving God faithfully.
Ladies and gentlemen, I get annoyed. I get annoyed when it is one thing when the Watchtower organization calls what it is preaching today the truth. Let us try to give them the benefit of the doubt that they believe that now, with all the changes that they have made over the decades, that now they are teaching what is true. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt there. But is there anybody on the governing body who believes that what Russell taught in the book, The Finished Mystery, in the book, The Time is at Hand, and all the other Russell books that they no longer use, does Samuel Hurd believe that truths are contained? I suppose if you want to become, to play a semantics game, you could say that not every single thing written in those books would be lies, because I'm sure that the book would say something like, Jesus is love, that is true. Jesus died for you, that is true. God loves you, that is true. But for the most part, the things written in Russell's books are not good enough for human consumption today among Jehovah's Witnesses. Yet this pathological liar would try to paint their history as though their determination was to present. All right. I'm trying my best to be objective. All right. Their intention, their desire was to present Bible truths. Did they successfully present Bible truths? Or did they present error after error after error after error? So much error that you dare not use that information again today? Let us listen to those words from Samuel Hurd again.
This is the story of a people intent on living in the light of Bible truth, no matter what hostility they may face.
I want to give him the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, he never said they lived in the light of Bible truth, but that their intent, that is not true, you know. That is not true. I am not convinced that my brother is intent on living in Bible truth. I am convinced that my brother is intent on living according to Watchtower. I am not convinced that my friend, who the first Jehovah's Witness who shunned me, well, in fact, she is probably the first, the only, because, yeah, the only Jehovah's Witness who has shunned me, cut me off totally. I am not convinced that she is determined, intent on living Bible truth. Because anybody who seriously intends on living Bible truth is willing to examine their beliefs. If you were to suggest to them that what they are teaching is false, if they are intent on living according to Bible truth, they would open their Bibles and say, no, come, let me show it to you in the scriptures. That's not their intent. Their intent is to follow the Watchtower organization. Because if their intent was on living Bible truths, after all the things that you have discovered over the years that proved to be false, you would stop following that organization. Your intention would be to go with the Bible truth. And since the Bible is teaching contrary, you would have left. So not even that can I give to the man. The best I could say, let's continue. The fun continues. Before I continue, because now I am being a little bit like the Watchtower and I can't afford to be like the Watchtower at all. Because I have said in the past that one of the reasons that I love Jehovah's Witnesses is because I believe that deep down they want to be in the truth. So why am I now contradicting myself? I do believe that deep down Jehovah's Witnesses really want to be in the truth. It's their desire, but they have not demonstrated an intent, a real serious intent. Because once they get into this organization, anytime you challenge them, they are not willing to examine. They tell you you are fighting against Jehovah. Really? So you are intent on living in the truth and you have the truth, but you cannot defend it. You cannot say to someone who is opposing that, no, you are wrong. Let me show it to you. There are things that I believe that people do not believe. And when they tackle me about it, I say, let me show it to you in the scriptures. Because it is important to me that what I believe is true. And if I can't establish it from the scriptures, I'm going to let go of it. That is what happens when you are intent, not just having some mere desire. When you intend on living according to Bible truth, you are willing and able, more than able, you are willing to open the scriptures to examine the truth of the Bible.
This video is more than just history. This is your story. It's a reminder that Jehovah God is in full control and that this is His organization.
You see, it is easy for me to forgive a Jehovah's Witness who is teaching that this is Jehovah's organization. But it's hard for me to accept it from Hurd. unless someone can show me, convince me that Herd is not cognizant of the Watchtower's past. Was God in control when Russell was teaching people that God is going to destroy Christians by the millions in 1918? Was God in control? Was God in control? And I suppose if you are familiar with this channel, you can just start predicting the things I'm going to be saying, because I keep saying them ad nauseum. Was God in control when Jehovah's Witnesses were publishing a book, Millions Now Living Will Never Die, and distributing it by millions across the world? Was God in control of that? Was God in control when the Watchtower caused people to be selling their homes and property in 1975? Or prior to 1975, because they felt that the world was going to come to an end in 1975? Was God in control? Was God in control when a Jehovah's Witness leader is caught on tape instructing Jehovah's Witnesses to destroy records that can incriminate? Where do I get the word incriminate? You know, I started saying it in one video and corrected myself, but rather that I said it in another video. Incriminate, Winston. The man is instructing Jehovah's Witnesses to destroy records that will incriminate them.
We've talked about what a record is. The question is, why has this come up? Why is it that we have records management now? We've been functioning as an organization for years. Well, we know that the scene of this world is changing, and we know Satan's coming after us. And he's going to go for us legally. We can see by the way things are shaping up. So the organization has said, we've run into difficulties in the past because of the records we have. Like most departments, you get the questions, you go through, you create a draft, and you think it looks really good, you pass it by, or someone in your department passes it by you as the overseer, and you look at it and say, no, change this, change that. Well, you do a few drafts, and if you're like Justin and I, that goes around quite a few times. We look at all those that were not approved, all these drafts, and we get rid of all drafts. And the reason is because there's many comments that are sometimes made on drafts. Those are the ones that get us in trouble.
Not because is Jehovah in control of that? Does Samuel Herd believe that Jehovah was in control when they were building Beth Sarim? Really? Because if Jehovah was in charge of all of that, tell me, what do you think Jehovah is? Not even who, but what?
It's a reminder that Jehovah God is in full control and that this is His organization.
I quite frankly deem it an insult to associate the Watchtower organization with God, knowing all of that. At this dishonor to God. Because how can you know that God hates lies and God is not the author of confusion, and accredit the happenings of this organization to my God? Well, it could be my God. Must be some other. It couldn't be the God. Could never be the creator of the universe. Could never be the God who hates lying lips. Could never be the God who is not the author of confusion. So it must be some other God. This is not, I do not intend for this to be a long video, but I'm actually going to be mentioning what I intend to mention in another video. Because I'm speaking about the Jehovah's Witness leaders and the pathological liars that they are. But the problem is not just the leaders. The problem is also Jehovah's Witnesses who will not think.
At Brooklyn Bethel on October 2nd, 1914, Charles Russell made a monumental announcement.
The Gentile times have ended. Their kings have had their day.
Expectations were still running high. Many of the Bible students were hoping for an immediate heavenly reward.
Based on the Watchtower's penchant for sanitizing its history, I would not be surprised if millions of Jehovah's Witnesses today do not know what is meant by end of the Gentile times, because the Watchtower is not telling Jehovah's Witnesses what Russell meant when he preached the end of the Gentile times. But the Bible students in Russell's time knew what the end of the Gentile times meant. Russell explained it very clearly in the book The Time is at Hand. The end of the Gentile times meant the end of the world. When the kings of the world are destroyed, when earthly kingdoms are no more. That is what he meant by the kings have had their day. So even if Jehovah's Witnesses today do not know, the Bible students that the Watchtower is telling you about in the time of Russell, that morning when Russell came out and clapped 3 times and declared the Gentile times have ended, the kings have had their day, there's only one of 2 explanations for the story that is told by the Watchtower. Explanation number 1, they are lying. Explanation number 2, the Bible students were idiots. And I cannot sugarcoat it. They were a bunch of nincompoops. They were a bunch of total brainwashed idiots. Because how on earth can someone come to you and tell you that the kings have had their day when Wilson is still president of the United States? There is no announcement of any president or leader or prime minister or king or queen in any country in the world who has been removed from... The Gentile times have ended meant that the world has ended. And you are in the room clapping. You must be an idiot. You must be brain dead. And then the Watchtower, the Watchtower actually said this much, if they are speaking the truth.
Many of the Bible students were hoping for an immediate heavenly reward.
The Gentile times have ended. The kings have had their day. And these people are looking for their what? Not just their heavenly reward, their immediate heavenly reward. If I'm going to be taken to heaven immediately, as the kings have had their days, why am I sitting in a room clapping? I should be wondering, what am I doing here? So when are they going to have the heavenly reward? Jesus is going to come after Russell makes the announcement and then take them to heaven? How are they going to have this heavenly reward? How are they going to get there? Because Russell announced it? What kind of nonsense is all of this? And I'm going to forgive the Jehovah's Witnesses because, as I said, they do not know. Some of them, I believe, most of them do not know what the end of the Gentile times really means or what Russell meant by it at the time. But how can you, as a Jehovah's Witness, sit down and listen to this nonsensical story and believe it Russell made a false announcement. But the Watchtower today is telling you that Russell made a phenomenal announcement. An announcement of a lie. An announcement of a blatant, ridiculous lie being glorified by the organization today.
And I might just say, my mother, she was ready to sell up everything in the home because she thought that the end was coming in 1940. And her feelings were that of a lot of the brothers back there.
This is what I'm talking about. This man is telling the story how his mother was ready to sell off everything because she thought that she was going to go to heaven, which turned out not to be true. Yet the Watchtower, speaking about that time, going back to that time, is talking about when they were speaking the truth. What kind of dishonesty is that? Why can't this organization accept the fact that they taught many false doctrines?
Reasoning on Daniel chapter 2 and Matthew chapter 24, the Bible students preached that a time of global anarchy would come, which would culminate in the end of the system of things. They believed that around that time the congregation would be taken to heaven.
They realized that 1914 had a significance. It meant the end of the Gentile times. Now, at that time, they felt that perhaps the work would be finished and they would go home, as it were. So they were looking forward to a time of reward.
They did understand that there was a significance to the year. Primarily, they thought that 1914 would just be the start of the judgment coming upon the world, or Armageddon.
Heard that? Two members of the governing body speaking about what the Bible students were expecting. Was there any mention that Russell or the Bible student were expecting World War I? No. Global anarchy. And they would be taken to heaven. The world would have ended. That is what it was all about. That was the false doctrine that that organization was presenting at that time. A false doctrine. And the governing body knows. Yet came this.
When World War I broke out in July, they felt vindicated, and it strengthened their faith in the Bible and in Jehovah's prophetic word, but also it enhanced their trust that Jehovah was using Brother Russell and his friends to explain truth to others.
Just looking at the sign of the times that Jesus told us to look at is enough, but it's still significant that they could pinpoint that year. That's phenomenal.
Oh boy, you are catching me. I'm editing. I was laughing a lot. I just found the thing so funny. These men are clowns. They are clowns. This is a circus. This is, I mean, what can I call this if not a circus? Because you preach that the world is going to end. Your mother is ready to sell out all her property because she believes she's going to go to heaven. You preach about a worldwide anarchy and the end of the world. The year comes, the world did not end, you are not taken to heaven, and that strengthens your faith that God was using Russell. Are you kidding me? And then ladies and gentlemen, the reason I paused, because I was going to say, then this idiot. It is what is on the tip of my tongue, describing Morris here. But I do not want to be unkind, which is why I paused. But what is it if not idiotic to say that it was phenomenal? What's the word he used? That they could have predicted that year? Every striking thing they said about the year proved false. Everything. There is not one prediction that Russell made about 1914 that came true. Not even half. Everything Russell said about 1914 turned out to be false. And Samuel Hurd knows it. Anthony Morris knows it. Gerrit Lush knows it. Jackson knows it. They know it. So it is not a case that these men do not know that they are lying through their teats. Teats. No, you have me lying about a word that doesn't exist. Lying through their teeth. Have mercy. What is wrong with these men? And deceiving a people who will not research, deceiving a people who will not think. I'm going to be doing a full response to this documentary. The point of this video is just to point out to you that they know that they are lying. It is not that they're making simple mistakes. They are lying through their teeth, and they know it. They are lying to Jehovah's Witnesses, and they know it. They are trying to sanitize their history, and they know it. They know that they are just prettying it up to make it not appear to be what it is. But something came out watching this documentary that I would like to close with.
We only see light when it's Jehovah's time to reveal light.
He actually went there. It's not the first time he said it when I saw him surprising me saying it. It's plain. Actually used those words before. These men actually believe. Listen to that again.
We only see light when it's Jehovah's time to reveal light.
Thanks for joining me for this video. Have yourself a wonderful day.
May the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all.